So the Synod Vice President is the highest elected lay officer in each of the 65 synods within the ELCA. The Vice President is chair of the Synod Council and is responsible for conducting Synod Council meetings effectively. Their work involves making sure that the business of the Synod is well managed and to remain in healthy relationship with the bishop, so that together they can faithfully attend to unique contextual needs within the Synod they've been entrusted to serve. This past year, I have been blessed by our Madam Vice President and her leadership gifts. She has been a partner in ministry, and I quickly learned to trust and respect. At this time, I invite our Vice President, Jennifer Slagle Peck, to share her report on behalf of the Synod Council on all that they have done this past year on the Synod's behalf.
Thank you. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. A familiar phrase from Psalm 118, but for me, this phrase vividly reminds me of my home congregation in Vermillion, South Dakota, where Doris Winters, who was 7 decades my senior, would boldly declare this line each and every time she was asked to read on Sunday morning. No matter the reading, no matter the day, she joyously said, "This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." Indeed, let us rejoice. Let us rejoice today for being together. Let us rejoice today for technology that allows us to be in assembly together, even when we cannot be in the same room. Even when our hearts are heavy with questions of who we are and questions of what we need to do as an institution and as people of God, let us rejoice. The congregation I grew up in certainly had a huge impact on my life, not the least of which was because of the reason that I found myself in that congregation. When I was in early elementary school, my family went to a Missouri Synod church. My parents were very involved there. My dad was on church council, and we had a lot of friends there. But by the time I was in 4th grade, which is the same age that my daughter Harper is in now, my parents decided that they could not stay in a church where their daughters would grow up seeing that there was a position that they could not hold simply because of their gender. My sister and I would never be pastors in that church. And even if we didn't grow up feeling called to that particular form of ministry, my parents knew instinctively that seeing people who look like you in positions of power is important. And so we had to leave. And we found a new church home in Trinity Lutheran Church, an ELCA congregation. And I've been in the ELCA ever since. I'm quite proud of my Lutheran resume. I went to Lutheran campus ministry at the University of Minnesota. I did Lutheran Volunteer Corps after college, and I even married a Lutheran pastor. I went to ELCA church camps as a kid. I went to the ELCA youth gathering when it was in New Orleans many years ago. And every New Year's celebration in college was at the Lutheran Student Movement National Gathering. When I was growing up, I had this sense that I would be on church council someday, like my dad, and maybe even be a parliamentarian. That'd be big goals here. But ultimately, my marriage to Dave foiled that plan because no church council wants the pastor's spouse. So the next best thing was to find my way to Synod Council. I was honored to join the Synod Council in the summer of 2020 and to be elected your vice president at last year's assembly. I'm honored to be involved in the Synod, not just because I like doing Lutheran stuff, which is clear, but because I'm very proud of the work that the Synod is doing. And this past year, we did a lot. I've outlined a lot of that work in my written report. So today I would like to focus on the work we are doing to fulfill our baptismal covenant to strive for peace and justice throughout the world. As many of you may remember, in October 2020, the Synod Council issued a letter responding to the murders of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and the racial reckoning that was happening that summer. We talked extensively as a council about what was ours to say and what was ours to do. Ultimately, we were called to lament for the sins of racial injustice and white supremacy and to recommit to building a more just and equitable society. We also wanted to write a letter that wasn't just a nice, pretty statement, as the bishop was talking about earlier. We wanted to do something that had specific steps and goals that we could set out to live into this calling. So as a result, we subsequently announced the Plan for Racial Justice, which has 3 distinct but not linear goals. We set out to 1, create learning spaces around our synod to encourage discussion, learning, and growth. 2, conduct an audit of ourselves to see where we as an institution have places to learn and grow and to identify steps forward. And 3, to identify ways in which our synod and our congregations could consider issues of reparations to communities harmed by our actions and our inactions. Each of these steps is more than a full-time job, but we set out to do them all, and we have made progress. In terms of the learning spaces, the crown jewel of our efforts is the Sacred Ground discussion groups hosted by our racial equity team. Thank you for everyone who's been involved. Sacred Ground is a curriculum on race and faith that over 60 of our rostered leaders and Synod Council members participated in this past year. The curriculum is a 12-part series created by the Episcopal Church, and it incorporates learning about our history, the history of our country, of our church bodies, but it is also focused on learning about ourselves, our family stories, our personal history. Participants in this series have shared what a truly transformational space their small group became for them this past year. Folks started out being overwhelmed by the amount of reading and the films that they were asked to watch, and they ended wanting more. Several of the participants kept meeting and kept discussing, and they're at the assembly this weekend offering 2 Faith in Action workshops to share more about their experience, to invite you to participate in Sacred Ground, and to launch a new group in our synod to work alongside the racial equity team. The new group is called the Faith in Action Racial Equity Network, and its goal is to connect individuals and congregations within our synod who are working on issues of racial equity. This connection is important because we know we have congregations who want to start engaging on issues of racial equity and congregations who want to find new ways to engage. We also know that one of the hurdles to getting involved in this issue is just not knowing where to begin. The network is here to help these congregations see how others have engaged in this work, to learn from what others have tried, and to share resources and ideas. We know this work doesn't have to look exactly the same in every context, so sharing our experiences and ideas helps engage more people and more congregations. The fact that this network came to fruition reminds me of my favorite leadership quote, which is by Tom Peters. He said, "Leaders do not create followers, they create more leaders." And that is exactly what the Synod is doing and what the racial equity team is doing. We are planting seeds around the Synod. We are growing leaders, and we are watching the work bloom. You can sign up for Sacred Ground, which the next cohort is starting this month. Simply search for Sacred Ground on the Synod website, and you will find the registration link. As part of our initiative for learning spaces, we have also been in conversation with all of the conference deans about making racial equity a regular part of the conversations happening within each conference. And our roster leaders are invited to find an accountability partner to continue to learn, grow, and identify ways to strive for justice in our daily lives. All roster leaders are invited to engage with this work within their conference. Now, some of you might be thinking, why are we creating so many different learning spaces? And the answer is because, like my parents knew when I was a kid, growing up in a place where you can't see people who look like you is unwelcoming and stifling. And while the ELCA has issued several goals to expand our own diversity and be truly welcoming of all, the ELCA, as we've said already at this assembly, remains the widest denomination in our country. We need to be curious about why that is, for we can't truly know who we are unless we understand who we have been and how we got here. And figuring out how we got here requires engagement in learning spaces. It also requires self-reflection. which is why the second part of the plan for racial justice is to conduct a synod audit. We are turning the mirror on ourselves and engaging in the hard work of being vulnerable and showing up knowing that we are going to be asked to make changes to more fully live into God's call to love our neighbors as ourselves. The audit began in January, and the goals are to review internal systems for bias and inequitable outcomes, propose changes that are more likely to yield equitable outcomes, and to identify barriers to achieving equity. For this work, we partnered with Gold Enterprises, a local consulting firm who has built a team of experts designed to meet the particular needs of our time and our place. They are experts in their fields of data collection, strategic thinking, change management, and more. And they understand our mission as people of God rooted in Lutheran theology. Already this year, Gold has conducted a thorough review of our governing and operational documents, and they designed a survey to gather information on the various perspectives and experiences within our synod. We want to hear from you, each and every one of you. The survey link is live on our website, and you can participate right here, right now, or preferably wait until a break when the reports are done. Once you have completed the survey, you have the ability to sign up for a listening session with members of the Gold team. You can also do that at the assembly because we are honored to have members of the Gold team with us this weekend. Please say hi to them when you see them and feel free to ask any questions you have about their work. Finally, the third part of the plan for racial justice is to study reparations. Our goal here is not to require any predetermined action by individuals or congregations, but our goal is to do our homework, to explore how we may address past actions and inactions in a way that will allow us to truly engage in healing. Our goal is to establish a panel of individuals who will study our history and the various ways in which other institutions and other churches are actively engaged in reparations. For example, we have seen how one congregation in Brookline, Massachusetts, recognized that they regularly incorporate music in their service that was composed by African people enslaved in America. While the purchase of other music usually provides royalties to the composers or their estates, that isn't the case for formerly enslaved people and their descendants. As a result, this congregation decided to collect a special offering whenever they sing one of these songs, and they donate it to a nonprofit youth music program that is focused on carrying on the tradition of these spirituals. Now, this may sound like a small act, but raising awareness about our history and our context and taking steps to make others whole matters. By studying our past, learning from others, and thinking creatively, I have immense hope that we can work toward a more equitable future for all of our siblings, regardless of race, ethnicity, or national origin. Issues of equity and of being able to see people like ourselves in our congregations and in our leaders is also relevant to many other personal identities, including our LGBTQIA+ siblings. This year on Synod Council, we have also talked about how we can be more welcoming of all people, regardless of their gender or their sexual orientation. And our very own Synod Council member, Melody Stackower, has presented several ideas for tangible things we can do as individuals, as congregations, and as a synod. She is offering 2 resolutions to the Assembly with some of these ideas, and I urge you to support them. The Synod Council also launched a creation justice team this year, which we will hear more about throughout the Assembly. These efforts are brought to you by individuals from every corner of our synod. I want to close by thanking all of these individuals and everyone who engaged in the work of the synod throughout the year. The synod staff went above and beyond in navigating the day-to-day while also thinking creatively and intentionally about who we are and who we need to be. Thank you. I would also like to thank the Synod Council. So if anyone that's in the Synod Council, if you could just stand up so we can identify who you are in this room. The Synod Council could please stand. Thank you. Thank you. The Synod Council engaged in the work of the Synod this year by consistently considering business with care. They asked good questions and they raised good ideas. You should all feel confident in their work and their leadership. And finally, to the countless individuals who are engaged in the committees, tables, teams, and congregational life in our Synod. You may think that you're just doing your own work and someone else is the Synod, but actually you are the Synod. Thank you for your work. You are fulfilling our mission to cultivate a bold and boundless love for Jesus and for God's beloved creation. Thank you. I can't wait to see where we are headed together. This concludes my report.